Welcome back to the Sales Pulse podcast. I'm Marla Koupal, the Sales Conversation Architect. I help new and experienced sales professionals tune up sales conversations and enhance those sales outcomes. Today, we're going to look at the sales results that you want and what do they quietly reveal about you when you're starting a conversation, and how you might make some shifts so that you can keep those sales results coming or enhance them. So when you're looking at your sales results, what stories are you telling yourself? Are you saying, oh, the market's down, the people just aren't buying nowadays, things are slow, there's a war, there's a this, there's a that, my leads are weak? If you're giving yourself all that hoo-ha, you may be not really finding and discovering the real problem. Some of that is possibly true. Let's take a look at this from a new angle today. What if your sales results are not reflecting your effort or your lack of effort? They're reflecting your intentions. If they're showing you that your priorities are subtracting from your desired results, then it may be time to take a look at those priorities. There's a behavioral pattern that I see with a lot of skilled sellers that actually put roadblocks up for people to make sales. Now, these are not beginner sellers. These are beginner mistakes, possibly, because the vision has been lost. Sellers that I know, nobody's avoiding work. Nobody's finding a way to get out of selling. They know their behavior has to produce the results in order for them to create a bigger bottom line. Salespeople are people who care, they show up, and they want to get sales. Still, results can feel uneven. That gap isn't about knowledge or ability to speak with others or about their training, but it is about what is getting prioritized when a conversation starts with a buyer. There's a quiet tension in every conversation. And here's the best way I can explain it. If the seller's intention is to make the sale, and the buyer's intention is to make sense of the decision they want to make, both are valid intentions. But the difference in the conversation with two people, two distinct intentions in mind, then the conversation can get confusing. So as a seller, it is your need as well as intention to understand the buyer first. And that will result in you meeting your intention of making the sale. But you can't do it without the buyer. You know what I'm talking about. When it's the seller's priority to make a sale, they seem to move faster than the buyer does. They seem to think they're slow decision makers. You might see a facial expression on the buyer, and you don't ask them what that question is or what that expression means. You just blow on past. Sellers are known to speak when the buyer goes quiet because you think you have to fill up the space. If there's something you haven't said yet that they need to hear, and all you have to do is ask a simple question of what's going on. And sellers seem to answer questions that the buyer never even had a chance to get to or ask about, or solve a problem that they really haven't expressed yet, but the sellers assumed the problem. Buyers want to be included. So from the seller's side, with your intention of making the sale, you're probably jumping in more than you need to be. That's probably one of the things you want to look at. Assess yourself when you're in the middle of a conversation. Ask yourself, do I need to slow down? Where did I jump ahead? Where have I left the buyer behind? Now, when the buyer sees all of those behaviors, that's how the buyer feels pressure. That's why they might call you a pushy salesperson. And what we know is if pressure from the seller to the buyer will create predictable responses. It'll generate short answers from the buyers. It will show a slow desire for the buyer to willingly engage with you. And it will turn the curiosity that got the buyer into the conversation in the first place to go through the conversation with extreme caution. Conversations stall at the point the buyer needs to get more involved and you don't allow them to be involved. Make your conversations collaborative, create a buying space. So, what is the shift that sellers can make? The first priority becomes understanding the buyer. There are so many things trained in sales that are assumptive about individuals making decisions, and you'd be surprised. Most sellers never understand my reason for making the purchase. They could be partly right, but they never hit the nail on the head. They'd be better off if they just let me talk. So, how about you, the sellers, prioritizing understanding the buyer? Simple shift, hard to do. You need a little bit of observation and decision making to how you're going to change that. You might need a little coaching. The pace of the conversation will change, though, when you decide that you want to understand the buyer. You, the seller, want to ask some questions once in a while that will move the conversation forward. Ask the buyer, what are you working on right now? What made this important enough for you to look at it today? What would you like to see change? When the seller is checking in for the buyer, they're present for the buyer. These move both parties forward and into a collaborative conversation. Discovering what's already there in the buyer's mind will reduce the need for control. You just need to embellish, add to, or stir up the information a little differently so they can grow a new perspective. Give the buyer time to think in real time. And if a buyer thinks out loud, don't butt in on them. Let them think out loud because they're organizing their own thoughts and they're prioritizing the next key steps that they want to make. Typically, sellers want to create the conditions where a purchase will make sense to the buyer. Maybe the buyer's whimsical. So let's look at this tip right here. If your sales results feel inconsistent, look at what it is you're prioritizing in the first few seconds of your conversation. It's not that you want to make a sale, it's that you want to understand the buyer, and then the conversation shifts. Here's the second tip. If you start out your conversations explaining the benefits and the features of your product, well, you're forcing the buyer to give you all of their attention. They need the attention on them. They want to know they're included and they're not just a billboard you're trying to stick something to. They need your attention on them. It's very seldom that a person walks up and willingly says to a stranger, I'm willing to listen to you, tell me what you have. That doesn't work. We have to engage even if they approached us. We are trying to create dialogues that will further the conversation, further the decision to a yes. Remember, no buyers are ever ready to listen to you until you've heard them. So start your sales conversations with curiosity. That way the buyer will stay engaged. They'll feel, ooh, they really like to know me. They want to know me. That will help the sale and that will help the buyer create clarity. Buyers move only when they have a clarity of choice. Remember that telling, guessing what they're about, implying they need this, or forcing a choice is absolutely going to choke your results. You may use those strategies in order to grow your sales. However, that is the best sales killer I know. Now, this may have been hard to hear, but I think it's useful. We can all use a refresher. When results are off, it's rarely because the seller doesn't care enough. It's usually because they've gone in the wrong direction and they haven't taken time to self-observe and look at what do they need to retune, where have their intentions gotten off course, and how can they truly serve that buyer. So the more you, the seller, care about improving your behaviors, then the buyers will be there. Buyers know that difference immediately when they get in a conversation with you. It's not in your words, it's not in your timing, it's not in your pace, it's not in your script, it's not how quickly or slowly you move. It's just that you listen to what they have to say and you give them time to participate. People are tired of being in conversations that don't fit them. If they're looking to gather information, then you need to understand what questions do they have that made that even start. They need to process that information. Let them talk out loud. Let them make their choices as they see, and only add in little bits as you see where they might have a gap in information. If they don't, and they're absolutely creating the fit for what you have to sell, let them sell themselves. Some of you are looking for a sales coach because you want more results. And so many coaches will say it's your attitude, it's your mindset, it's your inability to handle objections, it's your inability to manage a script. No, it is none of those. It is actually, how do you read the buyer? How do you read a buyer's behaviors? And how do you ask quality, open-ended questions in order to really get the buyer into thinking for themselves and absolutely seeing how your product fits? Selling is a behavioral skill, so you want a sales coach that's going to help you with the behaviors, not anything that is pre-planned, pre-practiced like a script in a play. You want to manage your behaviors. You don't want to bring quiet tension in. Remember to focus on the buyer. And when you're seeking a sales coach, remember you need somebody who's going to help you adapt your behaviors and help you prioritize the buyer first and create a buying space. Sales results come not because you prioritized making the sale, but because you served the buyer. So this week, for your exercise in growth, I want you to pay attention to the next few conversations you have. And notice when you have an urge to make the conversation move faster or move forward or go your way. That's the time to ease off and let the buyer step in and give you more guidance. Pause when you start getting that urgent feeling to make this conversation more, and you basically take over the conversation. That moment is when you will learn. Help your buyers be successful with their buying when you get your priorities straight. I'm Marla Koupal, the Sales Conversation Architect. Subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify.